I graduated before I could legally have a drink. I had a hot take that I got canceled for online for saying America was the least racist country in the world.
He started at 24 and by 31 sold Teachable for $250 million.
Probably tried 12 or 14 different startups and nothing quite clicked. And that was the time I think my parents' faith was tested a little bit. So I built the first version of Teachable almost as a side project for my buddy.
Let's talk about the Facebook apps.
I've never had as many people use anything I've built since then. There was a time where we had more traffic than the New York Times, more traffic than LinkedIn, and it was from a dorm room.
Encore, welcome to Post Run High.
Thank you. Excited to be here, even though I had to run to get here.
We ran a couple blocks.
And by that, you mean we ran 20 miles, good pace, kept it going, kept the conversation going. Yeah. It was good. It was good. I haven't been running a lot lately. I am supposed to run a marathon later this year, so maybe this was my training run number one.
Well, what's the farthest distance you've ever ran?
I did the Brooklyn half 2 years ago.
Okay. So you have never done a full marathon?
Never done a full marathon. The Brooklyn half I got into because I'm a very competitive person. And we had a group chat with 8 people. And all I cared about was beating the other 7. The time didn't matter.
Did you?
I did.
Wow.
I barely edged it out. Because people always say running is an individual sport. It doesn't matter how you do. It's just about yourself. Yeah. I didn't care about myself. I just wanted to beat the others.
What marathon are you doing?
Berlin.
Wow. Jeremy's friend's doing Berlin too. October 30th?
No. September 22nd, something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes
Should be
sense.
fun. The big reason I'm doing it is I've been prioritizing spending time with family a lot. And my brother's really gotten into running. So it's a little brother activity. So I as a result, I have to actually do it.
Well, that's going to be so fun. Are you guys going to do Oktoberfest after?
No, I have a team retreat right before. So Lisbon, then straight to Berlin. But yeah, I'm looking forward.
Okay. What's your training looking like recently?
I keep myself pretty active, but most of it is either playing sports or working out. Running is something that as I get closer, I'll probably do one long run a week or something. Because again, it's not the primary thing I'm optimizing for. My goal is, try and do it in 4 hours and not die.
The first time I did the New York City Marathon, I ran it like right under 4 hours, and that was my goal too. And I literally was doing no training. I did a little bit of training, but I was in college. I was a sophomore. I was drinking, going out, and then.
What was the longest run you had done prior to that?
It's funny because whenever you run a marathon, people will say to you training wise, you should get to like a 20 or 22 mile run. And I think the farthest I had gone was like 16 miles. And I was like, oh, I'll be fine. And then the first time I did the New York City Marathon, I got to mile 18, which is when you get into the Bronx. And it was like raining that year. And my legs were so fried to the point where I had to stop. Like I completely hit the wall, and I had brought like an extra pair of socks for some reason. And I was like, this woman in the Bronx helped me change my socks on the sideline. And
that's a beautiful New York story though.
Beautiful New York story. I can tell you that it was horrible, but I did still finish in under 4 hours. And that was impressive. But I remember my older brother has a video of me running at mile 24. And if you guys know the New York City Marathon, you know exactly where mile 24 is in Central Park. And he posted it on his story, and I literally looked like I was walking, but in my mind I was running. And I was like, Connor, why would you post that? But you know what? Still did it.
I hope there's an old German man waiting for me on mile 22 with some socks. So.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a padel guy, but on our run, you were talking a little bit about cricket. So Let's talk about movement and how it looks in your life.
Yeah. So now a lot of people know about, all the work I do in tech, but until age 14, 15, my goal was to be a professional cricketer. Like I spent pretty much every day from age like 5, 6, 7 till 14, 15, thinking my dream was to play cricket for a living.
Wow.
And I got relatively far. I played internationally for the country I grew up in. So I played for Oman at the under 17 Asian level. But cricket in Oman is like cricket in America. You're very good in a small country. And when we went to play against better kids in India, we're like, you're good, but not good enough to do this for a living. But as a result, being competitive, physical movement has been such a big part of who I am. And even now, I feel like just playing team sport is something that has shaped me quite a bit.
Yeah. And I feel like when you grow up playing team sports, it's so fun to like continue on in your adult life being competitive. And I like knowing that you've picked up padel. But for people that don't know, let's talk a little bit about cricket for a second, because I feel like I grew up, I would be at lacrosse tournaments, and I'm going to say like kind of over in like a baseball diamond type of setting, I would occasionally see people playing cricket.
Mostly Indian people, probably.
Yes, in the white outfits.
In the white outfits,
and I never knew like what cricket was. I knew it was similar to baseball, right?
Yep.
But Like, explain cricket to us.
Absolutely. So think about it as baseball with two bases.
Uh-huh.
People have this vision of like, oh, cricket is played by old British men and wearing all whites, and the games go on for 5 days. And while that is the genesis of where the sport came from, today's version is 3 or 4 hours, super quick, very competitive. There's two bases, but at the same time, what I find powerful about it is it's a team sport, but at the same time, it can be incredibly isolating. When you're batting, you have 11 people around you cursing you, yelling at you, calling your mom all kinds of names. But as a result, it builds this mental resilience. You have a person coming towards you, hurling a physical object, which if it hits you, can kill you, right? You have protective gear. So it's this very physical, very mental sport that played such a big part in my life. And if you move outside the US, it is actually the second most followed sport in the world after soccer.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
It is insane. A big part of it is India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. These are big countries, but it is the second most followed sport. Even when they held a game in New York City last year, they brought the World Cup to the US. The cheapest tickets for games between India and Pakistan in New York was $1,500, which is pretty insane for a sport that's, completely un-American.
Yeah.
It was almost as expensive to like watch an NBA finals as like a random cricket game in New York.
And you are still a big cricket fan.
I'm a big cricket fan. Now it's more on watching. And I recently also decided to buy a stake in a team. So was like, I want to invest in it. I haven't played as much since it's a hard sport to play. You have to, go up to the Bronx, spend like a couple hours getting there, play for 8 hours. So it's a long day.
Yeah, they play in Van Cortlandt Park.
They play in Van Cortlandt Park.
I've seen that before because when I went to Fordham, when I was a freshman and a little bit of my sophomore year, I lived at the Rose Hill campus. And I decided my sophomore year, I was like, let me just switch things up a little bit on campus here. And I tried out for the cross country team, or I guess I walked on. Technically, I didn't try out. And yeah,
this makes your marathon less impressive, but go on.
Yeah, we used to always see the guys playing cricket at Van Cortlandt.
Yeah, it was such a big part of who I am as a person and how I grew up. So now deciding to buy a piece of a cricket team was almost like me paying the 8-year-old version of myself to kind of go back to what I thought would be awesome as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, your younger self is probably like, that's pretty badass.
Dope, yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about your childhood. So you were born in India, but you didn't spend the majority of your life in India, right? So like paint the picture for us of what your childhood was like, where you grew up, and
yeah,
a little bit about
so
your family.
So I grew up in Oman in the Middle East, a country that not a lot of people have heard of, but it's a small country that also has a lot of oil money. And my parents moved there in the early 80s simply because the country discovered a lot of oil. As Indian people, you would make 20% more money by moving there. So they moved there. And honestly, I spent the first 17 years of my life there, and it was pretty ideal. My biggest regrets were it got kind of boring by the time you get 15, 16 and you're a little bit rebellious, you want to go out. It's a pretty tame, quiet sort of place. So I was itching to leave, but otherwise it was a very relaxed, very sort of good childhood from what I can imagine.
And we kind of touched on this on our run, but you grew up almost shaped by 3 different cultures, right? Because at 17, you ended up moving to the US for school. But you have a little bit of like your Indian background and then growing up in Oman. How does Oman differ from growing up in India? Like, is it totally different?
Yeah, so Oman culturally. So culturally, I mean, we're Indian. I'm not a religious person, but born Hindu. Oman is an Arab state. It's a Muslim country. Alcohol is like somewhat prohibited. There's rules on what you can wear and where you can go. Relative to the Middle East, it's probably the most chill country, but it's still the Middle East. So culturally, yes, we were from India, but if I go back to India, I'd never quite fit in there. Oman, you're always a transient worker, right? At the end of the day, we are expats. You have no immigration status, no legal status. So while it's home, in a lot of ways, it's not home. I don't speak Arabic. I would imagine at this point, I've been in the US a little bit over 15 years. America is probably my primary identity, but it's still very different from someone born here, raised here, all of that.
Like, do you feel like there's certain attributes from your childhood in India and Oman that have translated into your life here in the US?
I think I'm so much better in this country than back home.
Why?
As an example, I, by the end, was pretty bad at school back there because school was very regimented. You had to like study really hard. You couldn't work the system. It's a lot of math and science. And if you weren't willing to put in the hours, you wouldn't do very well. I came to the US and I realized college here is like one big game. You can figure out which classes to take, which classes to actually show up for, how to get credits in random ways. And I think US society
That's
actually,
not making the US look great. Come on.
it does. It does. I think this is why you have entrepreneurship here. Like the
Yeah,
fact
hey.
that you can come here and take initiative, and that is rewarded. Initiative is not rewarded anywhere else. As an example, when I was here, I was in Silicon Valley studying at University of California, Berkeley. I started a business in college that was making at first $20 a day, then a few $100s a day. And I was amazed by how many really smart, impressive people were willing to meet with me, talk with me, give me feedback. When I tried that back home in India, they don't take you seriously as an 18-year-old. The US and especially Silicon Valley is one of the few places in the world that will take you very seriously as a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old. And I think that's what makes this country very, very like the best place to start something.
Why do you think that doesn't exist as much in Oman?
I think it's less that it doesn't exist in Oman specifically versus America is just that special.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that, I believe, is you have 200 years of selection bias, where for 200 years, the people that weren't happy with where they lived moved here. Now you multiply that sort of risk taking across many, many generations. And what I think makes this country super unique is for hundreds of years, smart, enterprising people from across the world, across the discipline, have moved here to start a life. And that really compounds over a period of time.
Yeah, it's incredible. When you were younger and you moved here at 17, like, is that something that you knew about the US that you were like, I want to move to the US and go to college there because of this?
I wasn't frankly thinking that far ahead, but my dad always knew. Like I think he read a lot when he was younger, and he was like, from the age, me being 13 or 14, he said, look, like at some point, if you take your SATs, I had no idea what the SATs even were. And he's like, you have to go to the US since, if you are entrepreneurial, you want to start something, you want to build something incredible, there's no better place for it. But that is the power of the American brand, where you have someone, an Indian man living in Oman, had been to the US once, convinced that his children should come study in the US. And that's pretty cool.
When you think about success in your childhood household, what was the North Star for you? And like, what did your parents kind of instill in you guys?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents are pretty liberal for Indian parent standards. We're very like, do what makes you happy. But I think my dad was always biased that both me and my brother go out and start our own thing. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that he wanted to do that, but for whatever reason, felt like it wasn't responsible of him to. We were fine. We were middle class, potentially even upper middle class, but it still felt too high risk for him to give up a stable job to go do something. So in return, he's like, okay, I'll work really hard. I'll do this, but you and your brother should go ahead and, if you ever feel like it, go chase your dreams, start your own thing. Don't feel like you have to take the safe path, since I did that for you.
I mean, your dad must be so proud of you for what you've created. Before we get to everything that you've built, did your brother start his own company as well?
No, my brother's had a bunch of side hustles, but right now he's also very happy making a completely different choice and, working at a good job. And honestly, I think his life is less stressful than mine. So,
and that's also really special because I know you fly your parents in a decent bit, right, to the US. And would you ever want them to move here?
No, their social lives are so poppin'. They have such a great life. Like, why would they give up their like crazy, hectic social life to move to a new country at this age?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I look at all my friends in New York. Their lives are crazier than ours. Like, they have parties every night. They're happy.
Well, what made you choose UC Berkeley?
I got rejected from every better school than UC Berkeley. It was very simple. I think I overshot my college applications. I got rejected from every Ivy League school. I got rejected from Stanford. Berkeley was the best school I got into, so it was very simple. In the US, you have the luxury of visiting all your colleges and seeing which one you connect the most with. For me, or for most Indian kids, it's like, okay, what is the best school I get into? Sure, I'll go there. And the first time you're on campus is your first day of class.
And you were 17, not 18.
Correct.
So you were a year younger than most of the kids.
I was a year younger. I graduated at 20. So I graduated before I could legally have a drink.
Well, UC Berkeley's a good place to land.
It was a good place to land. It was a little bit different from what I was expecting. This sounds really dumb and corny, but at the time, a big part of what you learn about America is like movies and TV and stuff. And
And food.
yeah, and food. And as embarrassing as this sounds, I go to college and in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like American Pie. This is going to be like frat parties and red solo cups and just people doing crazy things. But it was a pretty dorky engineering school. Like the first day I get there, half our floor is just playing video games. Like no one wants to socialize, they're doing their own thing. And I was like, this is not the US college experience I was promised. Uh, but being on the West Coast and stuff was pretty helpful and it helped me meet a lot of great people.
During that transition process, when you first moved here, was the transition hard? Did you feel like, what was that like for you?
It was easier than you would imagine. And I think
Mhm.
there's a couple of reasons for that. I think 117 is early enough where your own identity is malleable. You can change quite a bit. So a lot of my friends who moved to the US at 17 culturally changed quite a bit. The ones who moved at 21, right? 4 years, those 4 years make a massive difference. The second thing is the US is relatively easy to move to compared to most of the world. Um, I had a hot take that I got canceled for online for saying where I said America was the least racist country in the world. And I genuinely, like 2 years before that, I'd studied in an all boys school in Australia. And that was a truly hard experience of trying to adjust, assimilate. Going to like a US college campus, I think is one of the friendliest places you can go no matter where you're from.
What would your advice be for other students like you transitioning into a school in the US and kind of being in the US almost for the first time?
The mistake I see a lot of people make, or at least I think it's a mistake, is Indian kids will come and hang out with the other Indian students. Chinese kids will hang out with the other Chinese students. And I think, yes, you can have one friend group from there, but you're starting a new life, like assimilate and meet people from everywhere versus sticking to your own kind or whatever.
Yeah, and I feel like you having left India at such a young age and growing up in Oman and then moving to the US, like having those kind of three
Correct. I
different
already
cultural.
didn't have a single group I could go with where I'm like, oh,
Right.
we're exactly alike.
Yeah, that probably helps so
Mhm.
much more than
Yeah.
like you ever really thought. Okay, well, let's talk about your experience at UC Berkeley because it was transformative. I want to dive into the Facebook apps. So, paint the picture for us. What were you like as a freshman year student, and when did you first start becoming entrepreneurial on your own?
Yeah. So freshman year, I still personality wise was the same. I spent all my time trying to figure out, how could I get good grades while doing the least amount of work. Yet I always had this guilt that my parents were spending a huge part of their life savings to send me to college, right? So there was this guilt kind of weighing on me. So I would always go to class and be pretty responsible. I got a campus job my second semester. I got an internship at Amazon after my freshman year, which at the time I was like, wow, this is like sick. I was 18, earning, I don't know, 5 grand a month. It's a lot of money back then.
Still is a lot
Still
of
a lot of
money.
money. Still a lot of money.
That's more money than I was making when I first graduated college, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
it
and I was an intern, and I moved to Seattle to intern at Amazon as an 18-year-old. And for the first time in my life, I felt positively miserable in Seattle. I was super homesick because it was the first summer back. All my friends were back home. I had this like, I don't know if other people have felt this, but your first adult job kind of sucks. Like you realize you go to the office, you're there for so long, you come back, you're kind of tired, you have to do it all over again. I was 18. I didn't know anyone in Seattle who was the same age as me. I didn't have a fake ID, so I couldn't even like go out to places. But the upside of that is it coincided with the launch of the Facebook platform, where you could create little games and quizzes on Facebook. And having nothing else to do on nights and weekends, I started to play around with that. And by the end of that summer, got to a point of making, $10 or $20 per day. And I have never had a job since that Amazon internship. It also just made me realize having a large job is so soul crushing. There was a time, firstly, my entire team at Amazon worked on such a small thing. My entire team worked on one page inside one dashboard. And there were a couple of days where I didn't go into the office and no one even realized. How horrible is that? That like you matter so little. Like I was such an annoyance for my boss that he didn't care if I showed up or didn't.
Yeah, like when you take a really entrepreneurial kid that loves building things and working for yourself and, yeah, just you love building things, like, and then you put them in a 9 to 5
It's
job that you
horrible.
really are like a cog in the system, a CS job at Amazon. I mean, that's just not the right place for
I
you.
wouldn't hire myself. As someone that hires a lot of people, I would absolutely not hire myself.
Yeah, well, of course not. You don't want somebody that, wants
Doesn't
to
get.
start their own thing or get
Mhm.
your company. Let's talk about building the Facebook apps and, what Facebook kind of looked like at the time and how you guys started making money from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day, I mean, now Facebook is the old person platform, but back then it was the place to be, right? Our first few years of college, everything was shaped by it. My freshman year of college, Facebook was for colleges only. I think by my sophomore year, that expanded to other high schools and stuff. But it was growing really fast. It was a hotbed of activity,
Yeah.
and they allowed anyone to build an application on the platform. And as a result, you could build something and potentially have millions of users within a span of a few days. It was quite unlike anything we've seen up until that point on the internet, where if you had to reach millions of people, it was super difficult. But I spent the next 3 years in college building all kinds of games and quizzes and these hyper viral apps that would reach millions and millions of people. So things like personality quizzes, where someone would answer 5 questions, it would tell them how good a lover they are, just like stupid stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um,
How are you coming up with the ideas for the quizzes?
so initially, I would try and do a lot of research, work quite hard. Then I realized it doesn't matter. As long as you write good enough descriptions,
Yeah.
like we had a quiz called "What color is your aura?" and as long as the descriptions were good, where it's reads like a horoscope, where it's like your the color of your aura is black. Kate, you're mysterious. People think they know the real you, but they don't know who's actually behind it all. And as long as you kind of gave people what they wanted to share, that's what really mattered. If we had a quiz, which friend's character are you? People didn't care what character they are. They would take the quiz over and over till they got the character they wanted, and they would share that.
Uh-huh.
So it was fascinating. You get such a cool insight into human psychology with millions of people.
How much money were you making from these quizzes?
So by the time I turned 21, I hit $1 million through this. It started out with 10 or 20 bucks a day. It peaked at tens of thousands of dollars a day. I think our biggest day was like 50 grand a day, but it was up and down, right? You'd be very popular for like 6 days, then would die down entirely.
And when you say hour, you basically are saying that you went from doing this on your own late nights after your internship at Amazon, summer of your freshman year, to then what, recruiting people at
I
Berkeley to do it
recruited
with
all
you?
my roommates. I had and this is so different, right? It's doing business when you don't know anything about business. Anyone I recruited, I'm like, okay, fine. You do this, you get 30% of revenue. You do this, you get 20%. It was the craziest deals that didn't make any sense, but it was really fun. I lived with 3 people who ended up and still are amongst my closest friends. Brought them in on the business, hired developers. It was a good crash course in building a business before I even turned 21.
What do you think the Facebook quizzes taught you about business that was applicable to, your future businesses like Teachable and what you're doing now?
I think it taught me about growth specifically. That entire platform was a time when you had to do so much social engineering to grow anything. And I think a lot of those lessons have stayed with me today. Even now, I've never had as many people use anything I've built since then. Like back in the day, we peaked at about 2 to 3 million people a day. There was a time where we had more traffic than the New York Times, more traffic than LinkedIn. It was crazy, and it was from a dorm room. So insane.
So nuts. And did you guys continue doing it throughout college? Like, how long did this last for?
I did it till about a year or so after college. It would always ebb and flow since you'd get shut down or the rules would change or the applications get less popular. But after like the 5th or 6th time it shut down, I started to feel like I wanted to build something more substantial because as cool as this was, you were only as good as yesterday's revenue. You were building no enterprise value. But also at a certain point, games and quizzes are fun, but you look back and you're like, am I truly making people's lives better?
Yeah, and also if you think about it in the lifespan that you're saying for the games, you wanted to build something that was sustainable.
Exactly.
Did any of the people that helped you build out these apps on Facebook end up working at Teachable?
No, 2 of them are finance bros and one's a plastic surgeon. So they went in
Oh.
completely different worlds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it really was a side hustle for you guys in
Absolutely.
college.
Yeah.
Then what happened after college? Where did you start working?
After college, I had the 2 years, I would say, of trying different ideas and nothing quite clicked. So I probably tried 12 or 14 different startups. And At the time, that was also when I decided it wasn't working and pack my bags and move to New York City and try to almost start over. And that was the time I think my parents' faith was tested a little bit because there was a divergence in what my mom and dad wanted. My dad's like, yeah, keep going. Doesn't matter. Like, who cares? You'll figure it out. My mom's like, well, why don't you work at Facebook? They could hire you. Can't someone hire you? But I'm glad I stuck it out until then starting Teachable when I was 24.
I love knowing how supportive your parents were.
They were and continue to be incredibly supportive.
Like they just always knew that you were going to make it happen on your own.
My dad more so than my mom, but yeah, it did work out. Through this whole process, immigration was a stressor because I had a student visa, I sponsored my own student visa, I then extended it, and then at one point, which is around the time right before moving to New York City, I had to leave the country. I was told I had to leave the country. So I Googled the cheapest community college I could find to get another student visa. But I constantly had this sort of stress of I can't legally stay here unless I figure this immigration stuff out. So that does make things a lot harder.
How did you finally figure it out?
I finally got a very good lawyer and I applied for something called the O1 visa, which is a extraordinary ability visa, but it's something that
The alien of extraordinary.
alien, exactly. It's a very welcoming visa. But from there, I got my green card and eventually passport.
Wow. And then by building your business here, does that help with immigration?
So I only started Teachable when I figured out immigration. It was
Oh, wow.
challenging enough that as soon as I got that, I formally incorporated Teachable.
Well, let's talk about how the idea for Teachable came to be. And I want to premise this with guys when Encore was 31. He started at 24, and by 31, he sold Teachable for $250 million, which is incredible. But let's start with the basics. How did you guys get the idea for Teachable, and what did it start out as, and then kind of what did it evolve into?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was never a big grand vision or a grand idea. It was one of many different side hustles or things we were trying where my buddy Conrad and we saw this platform Udemy had come out where you could sell online courses. So we decided to help some people sell their courses. We soon realized, why don't we create our own courses? Did that, and then found a lot of challenges with the Udemy model where it was a marketplace. They kept a really high revenue share. They owned the customer. So I built the first version of Teachable almost as a side project for my buddy Conrad. And we sold a couple $1,000s of courses when we launched and was like, okay, maybe there's a real idea here. And then started offering it to other people.
And when you say you were selling courses, like were you having other people create the courses?
So it started with other people. And then we said, why don't we create our own courses? So we had courses on whatever it did with the Facebook apps, growth, marketing, all of that.
It's so interesting. And it started as it was almost like a social media platform, right?
Yeah, it was super unintentional. It was always selling courses on your own websites. The product didn't change much, but this is before the creator economy, right? We didn't know Instagram, YouTube, everything would blow up. There'd be all these big creators. We thought our target audience was educators, so we got that wrong. But as we kept building the business, the creator economy happened and people started selling millions and eventually hundreds of millions of dollars a year of courses.
When did you guys realize that the company was going from a startup to a real business?
Probably. So it took us 6 months of just messing around before I decided to incorporate and raise money. I would say about a year after that, it started to feel like we started to make tens of thousands of dollars a month. And at that point, it's like, we may be onto something.
You may be onto something and you're like, we need to make sure we have the right team here. Let's talk a little bit about hiring people, because I think that is one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs, right? Like, what was your hiring strategy when you guys really started growing Teachable?
Initially, it was 100% vibes. Like, I wish I could say we had an interview process. Our first engineer who became our CTO, he showed up like an hour late to the interview. And either way, we had a good chat. I described like one thing I was working on. I kind of forget about it. The next morning, he emails me at like 6 a.m. He stayed up all night building a working prototype of what I was talking to him about. I'm like, cool, you're hired. We'll figure out the details later.
Okay, that is more than vibes.
Hiring people on where they went to school or where they worked has turned out to be one of the worst strategies I've found. Indexing a lot on people who want to be there. I also index a lot on people who move fast. For better or worse, my operating style is quite fast, and sometimes it is chaotic. It's not easy for other people to keep up with, but I like that from the people I hire.
I've interviewed a lot of people like yourself that have had this like extreme level of success. And one of the things that I found with the most successful people is that they're so quick to respond. Like, is that a commonality you
It's a
found?
commonality. I also bet if I were to hypothesize, there's a high correlation with ADD, like better or worse. I mean, I'm not medicated ADD, but I think if I grew up in America, I may have
Yeah.
been. But where you either reply right away or you're going to forget about it. So the people who do reply are the ones who reply pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's just a bias towards action, right? I don't like kind of waiting around on stuff. I'm also very instinctive when it comes to making decisions. So I think that tends to help. If I think about all the things that have made me good at what I do and successful, those traits have a negative expression as well. And I think that's a great example where we can't take the good parts of our personality without also getting the bad part of the exact same trait. So yes, I'm also impulsive. I probably take too many risks, but if not for that, I would not have gotten the positive expressions of that.
When you guys first started out, what were the core focuses for you when you were building your business? Like, I know some of the things for you guys were keeping ad spend low. You built a lot of your momentum off of organic growth, right? So, like, let's talk through those kind of decisions and what made you guys
Yeah,
structure your
absolutely. I
business
would
like
say
that.
there's basically three phases of our growth. Phase one was just unmitigated, kind of stupid hustle, where we would do insane, unscalable things to make the numbers go up no matter what.
Like what? Give us some examples.
So there was a time when there's this guy we wanted to sign up on our platform. His name was Pat Flynn. He was a very big deal in the world of online courses then. Pat kind of was ignoring all my emails. So I started looking at every single conference he was going to. And anytime I go to a conference, I'm like, hey, Pat, I'm going to be here. Finally, I saw he was going to be at this conference called FinCon in North Carolina somewhere. I hit up Pat. I'm like, hey, Pat, I'm going to be at FinCon. He's like, cool, I'll meet you for breakfast, 8:30 tomorrow. I'm like, fuck, I got to get there now, tonight. So flew there. Obviously, I didn't have a conference ticket or I wasn't going to the conference. Met him for breakfast, signed him as a customer. He became an affiliate. I flew back after that meeting. It was stuff like that we did repeatedly. Like we had a month where our customers weren't selling a lot, or the next month we didn't have any big course launches. So Conrad and I gave up our Thanksgiving plans, flew to Berlin with our biggest creators, took a camera, recorded something, launched it the week after. So we just had to do these things in the early days before there was an engine that really worked.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because it's like you guys have this platform that's built on courses, but you literally need to find people. Like, it can't just be you
Mhm.
guys making courses forever.
And
Like, it has to be other people
correct.
as well. What were your other strategies to getting people on? Who was like the first person that you guys got onto your platform?
So the first big person, so we got the first person was obviously Conrad. The first couple of people were other Udemy creators,
Mhm.
but something pretty fortunate happened where two of our creators made $1 million in the first 6 months. And the benefit of that is so much PR, right? Now it's like John and Elliot are 27 and 28, traveling the world, made $1 million teaching people how to build iPhone apps. So then that got us the first sort of growth spurt. And that's what led to our primary growth strategy that we ran for most of the company, which was storytelling about other creators. We realized our competitive advantage is the best creators on our platform, especially if they were in the world of business or making money online. They in turn could be our biggest affiliates and promoters. So that's a strategy we used for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. It's like
Now it's
every
obvious. At the time, it felt like crazy, but now you look at these businesses.
No, yeah, it's so true because it's like when you think about, I mean, when I think about YouTube, I'm like, why do I want to be on YouTube? I'm like, because so many of these other creators have had so much success on YouTube. Of course, I want to like try to have success on that app as well. It makes the same, it's kind of the same thing
Exactly.
for Teachable.
Exactly.
And I think that's a cool notion to go into too, because when you guys first started out, it was pretty early on into the creator economy per se.
There was no
So
creator economy. We
there was
stumbled into it,
you
basically.
literally stumbled into it. Like, what did you learn about the creator economy from building Teachable?
It was fascinating since, again, there was no such thing as the creator economy. But then we started to look around. We're like, where can we find people that could be creators? An insight that seems obvious now is we realize it's easier to teach someone with an audience how to teach than it is to teach a teacher how to build an audience. The other thing is, I think we got fortunate in timing. Like, we rode the wave of when online courses were really big. Like, I think the heyday of courses were sort of 2017, almost peaking in 2020, and they've sort of declined a little bit. I still think the creator economy is and will continue to be massive, but the exact products will keep changing.
How soon into you guys creating Teachable did things like Masterclass come out?
I would say roughly midway through they were out, but there were always different variants. When we started, for instance, Skillshare was really big, and then they kind of, disappeared. There was a company called Creative Live. There were always different form factors. What we got fortunate on is by empowering the creator. We were very close to Shopify, but for information. But that meant the creator did all the distribution. We were just the technology platform.
It would have been cool if there was like, I don't know if there was like a teachable times masterclass type of thing. Cause you like, they're very different.
We did a few deals like that where we'd help people create content.
Yeah.
And what we soon found is those businesses are hard enough that anytime we did that, it turned into a shit show we were not prepared for, because you start doing something that's not your business. And it's just a constant reminder that you have to be better at saying no to things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I think about masterclass too, I almost think of like, it's like a mini TV show, right?
Oh, it
Like
is.
it's like a mini TV series.
It's a masterclass. The problem in masterclass is like the best teachers we find are not the celebrities, right? The best teachers are someone whose story you relate to. Like, I don't want to learn how to shoot a basketball from Steph Curry. I want to learn from the other Indian kid who's probably better than me, right? And people want that relatability. And masterclass, you're right. It's entertainment, less so education.
What was it like selling a company during COVID?
It was wild. I mean, you have nothing to compare it to at all, but it was at the same time, it felt like a weight off my back, yet it was also hard, right? You've been building this thing, you care so much about this thing, and now it's someone else's thing. What made it even more interesting / complicated is right the day after we sold it to 3 months later, the business doubled. We saw more growth. Like, it was the craziest times at work were right after we sold, which honestly was probably good because there was so much else happening in New York. New York was a terrifying place at the time that it kept us busy, but the realization almost never sank in since you were so caught up in the day to day.
You ended up still working on it for a few months post selling, right? So let's talk about what those months kind of looked like and how your position at the company changed after selling it, and maybe what those emotions are like once you sell a company.
Yeah, so the emotions, again, as I said, it's very different because we were all in lockdown. There was no cathartic like post exit party. I still get people from the company who tell me that I owe them that. They're like, we never got to celebrate. Like, we're owed a post sort of exit party. So it was definitely a little bit more complicated since you're in lockdown and kind of coming to grips with all of that. For me, my life only really changed when I stepped away from the role entirely. Like, my life did not feel different just having more money in the bank or whatever. And by the end, and this also related to why I sold the company, I don't think I was enjoying it that much. The reason being, I felt like a lot of my role was typical CEO stuff, which is so much less fun than building and creating things, where I had to deal with executives who had managers, who had other reports. And you spend all your life in these long meetings every day, and it felt like it was going nowhere. But when I stepped back is when I really found the quality of my life improve.
What is your role now at Carrot?
Right now, I am also the CEO, but when you're a small company, I don't think you're really a CEO. I think you only really become a CEO in a true executive way when you have 50, 100 people. And if I feel the same way in the future, I'll step away and bring in someone more qualified.
What do you think is your favorite thing about building a business?
The people, undoubtedly. Like, I look back on all the times. Yes, we made money. Yes, we built a successful business, but it's always the relationships. It's the team. So many of the customers are still friends. Our earliest investors, these are lifelong relationships that compound and grow. I also think having a good time while you're doing the whole thing takes a lot of the pressure off, since you're like, look, no matter what, like, I'm getting to live my dream and do something really fun. So undoubtedly the people.
What did you do post selling your company? And also, I want to put this in the perspective of like 20-year-olds listening too. I know you said your life didn't change that much after you sold the company, but in actuality, like, you do all of a sudden get this like big deposit into your bank account. How does it work? Is it like a wire transfer?
Yeah, you get a really big wire transfer one day. And then you get smaller amounts 1 year later and 2 years later. They always reserve some money in case shit fucks up or you have to pay them back or whatever. But yeah, one big wire transfer. My stories are very boring though. I did nothing crazy. I bought a secondhand car, which is insane. I didn't need to buy a secondhand car, but I wanted to go surfing at Rockaway Beach. And I was like, oh, you know what? I deserve a car. So I bought a secondhand car. I want to travel, but most of the world was locked down. But I realized Tanzania was in lockdown. So I went to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I was one of the first people to do that right after. And yeah, then honestly, like, a lot didn't change. I bought a house, but even then it was like, this had to be a good, responsible decision. But what started changing a lot is once I wasn't doing my job, that freedom let me spend 2 years, travel the world, spend more time with my family, go hang out with friends I'd not seen in a long time. That I felt really was awesome.
Having made a lot of money, how was your perspective changed on money?
I feel fortunate in that I, again, I've seen other friends go through something similar where their burn rate or whatever has linearly gone up. I definitely spend more money now and I have more than enough for everything I do, but it hasn't dramatically changed a lot of stuff. Like some lifestyle changes are massive, are like I'll always like get a lie flat seat when I fly on a plane, long flights or stuff like that. Um, I can be more generous with friends and family. So that's been awesome. But it hasn't like dramatic, like I don't find myself in the pursuit of much more. Like I want to build a really large company now and I want it to be financially successful, but more because that's a way of keeping score versus I think the like another $50 million will change my life. I think at this point, as dark as this sounds, like more money will just change the number I go to the grave with. It will not change much. I have enough basically. Like a lot of people ask what is enough, and I don't know. For me, it wasn't what I had before the exit, and I'm definitely well past it now. So somewhere in between, but yeah, I definitely feel like I have enough.
And then post building a successful company, how do you think your perception on life has changed?
If I look at my life and think about what has excited me, motivated me, made me happy, it is like playing and winning sports games of a different kind. And as I, even when it came time to start my next business, part of the framing in my mind is like, look, for better or worse, my sport now is a little bit lamer than cricket. It's building a business, and I'm still in the prime of my career, and I'm too young to kind of hang my boots or whatever. But I still think like retaining that sense of like adventure and competitiveness, and while keeping it lighthearted, is such a big part of who I am, and it's something I think as you get older you have to fight to retain. But I work towards that.
Let's talk about when you decided to start building your next company, Carrie, which by the way, I'm technically an investor
Yep.
in. Very small investor, but it still counts.
Size doesn't count. You guys
Yeah.
are you guys are investors. That's what's important.
Uh-huh.
It took about, I would say, between 18 and 24 months
Wow, that's pretty quick.
before it was quick. It was
It probably felt like a while though.
time. The benefit, and this is also why I love traveling so much, is when you change your day-to-day environment, time feels slower. So those 18 months definitely felt like things slowed down in a really good way. But by the end of that, I started to crave, building something with a group of like-minded people. The latter being very important. Like for me, the business is a part of it, but I wanted to build a business with a group of people where we like each other. That was such a big part of like my life for almost 7 or 8 years. I started to miss that, and yeah, decided to do it all over again.
And when you started Teachable, it was, and even till the day you sold it, was such a simple idea. What is this simple idea that Carrie has to offer?
The tax code in America is incredibly hard for the average person to understand and take advantage of. And we want to build software to just do that for you. So today that manifests itself, and we help people set up retirement plans and do tax saving strategies. But really, the big North Star is if we can help you, every other person listening to this show, take advantage of all the opportunities that otherwise you'd need expensive lawyers and accountants and a lot of time and paperwork to do.
So what does the platform look like for people? How does it help?
So today we have a list of strategies that can help most people save money. Like we have a one-person 401k plan for anyone who's a business owner. We have retirement accounts called IRAs that let you do all kinds of conversions. If you're a high earner, we let people do something called the backdoor Roth, the mega backdoor Roth. We have a cash management product that will put your cash in the most tax advantaged money market fund. So think of it as a way where you come in, you have a list of strategies, you can pick the ones you like, we'll custody your dollars, and at the end of the year, we can also file your taxes for you. Yeah, it's a fully different world. I underestimated how difficult the world of fintech and finance is, but as I said, keeps it interesting.
Yeah, definitely. How many people work at the company now?
We're 18 people right now.
Wow. All right, so you got that startup culture going.
Mhm.
By the time you sold Teachable, how many people were working at the company?
Almost 200, which I would say is about 150 people more than what feels good from the perspective of, truly feeling like a small startup.
What are you doing differently this time that you wish you had known to do going into building Teachable?
I will caveat with still believe I'm going to make a whole new set of mistakes. I think doing something 2 times is a very, very small sample size. But this time we're fighting even harder to keep the team as small as possible. At Teachable, we did, but now, we're 18 people. We could probably be 2 to 3 times as many people. But I've just seen the effectiveness of small teams. And that's a really, really big thing we're trying to do. We're also spending very little money on paid marketing. We're trying to build our business in a very lean way that we don't have to, just because I've seen friends do the opposite playbook where you raise a ton of money and you're spending a lot of money and then the whole train kind of runs away from you.
Yeah, and there's nothing like a startup culture, and it's cool knowing that you love being in a startup
Absolutely.
environment. Small team kind of comes into play with that. Well, we learned so much about you today. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I've got one final question that I want to ask you. Knowing what you know now, what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
People overestimate risk. Like, I think one of the biggest biases we all have, it's very natural, is risk feels like the scary thing. But as a result, our brain overindexes on the negative part of risk. I think I took a fair amount of risk. I think I could probably have taken 2 to 4 times more. And I think that's true for most people listening to this.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
There's so
thanks for
much we
having
can
me.
learn from you. For everybody that wants to follow you, stay up to date with your journey and everything you've got going on, where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on social. It's my full name on Twitter. It's my ANKURNA on Instagram. Pretty active there. Otherwise, Carrie's at carrie.com.